Jesus, and today I want to talk about my gaming history. A bunch of people on YouTube have been posting these lately, and it's kind of fun to do. To sort of talk about, how I became a gamer. Mine might be a little bit different than some, simply because I actually worked in the game industry for a little while. I used to work for a company called Sierra Online in Bellevue, Washington, and I'll talk a little bit about that. As of the taping of this, I'm 39 years old, which means that for my generation, we basically got our start with the mighty Atari 2600 back in the very early 80s. Actually, we got started with the Atari 2600 and arcades. I used to go to an arcade with stand-up machines and quarters all the time. That's where I found all the arcade classics like Pac-Man, Dig Dug. I really love Spy Hunter and some of the top-down shooters, as I've covered in another of these videos. And then I find it kind of interesting because a lot of people in the media covering that at the time talk about sort of the big video game crash of the 1984 or whenever that was. And as a young gamer, I didn't really feel that actually. For me, nothing stopped. As a matter of fact, what happened was is instead of focusing really on the home console, actually I moved over to computers and kept right on playing games. Nothing slowed down for me. As a matter of fact, what was really exciting at the time, and which was different than console gaming, was simply the depth of games that came out on a computer. As I was getting a little bit older, I was really into sort of games that had a little bit more depth. Games, like I've covered Portal on the Commodore 64. I absolutely, was blown away by games like Ghostbusters at the time because it had speech. I mean, it actually spoke to you, in the credits. It was really cool. I really liked Infocom text adventures like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and things like that. So anyways, and Planetfall was another great game I absolutely love. I also really fell in love with simulators like Gunship. But that all happened, graduated from high school, and then I needed to find a job. And I was working in a bar, and that was going okay, making some good cash, but I really wanted to move into the game industry, and so I basically answered an ad in the paper for a company called Sierra Online, which I was vaguely familiar with. They made, at the time, they were the king of adventure games. They made King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, Police Quest. They made Space Quest. All these sort of, graphic adventure games. And I got a job there, and basically was working originally in their accounts receivable department and doing accounting, but I would take any job I could get. And within a year, moved over to their tech support department, and that's really where sort of I got a lot of technical skills. And it was the height of Sierra. At the time, they had bought a gaming company called Dynamics, and one of the things that they moved into was arcade and simulation games. So for instance, I loved supporting and playing games like Aces Over Europe. They had Aces of the Deep, which was a sub game. Dynamics had some racing games, which were really fun. And then one day, one of the game developers contacted me and saw that I had long hair and looked like a rocker dude, and he said, "Hey, do you want to star in a game?" And I was like, "That sounds pretty cool. What do I need to do?" He's like, "All I need you to do is play guitar and act like a rock star." And I'm like, "I can do that." So that game was Shivers 2. This is the strategy guide for it. Shivers 2 was one of Sierra's answers to the game at the time, which was Myst. So it was on CD. The CD format was starting to take over. A lot of gaming companies were starting to do full motion video at the time and sort of experimenting with that. This was Sierra's attempt at sort of mixing the traditional kind of adventure game with full motion video. And so I actually play the lead guitarist in this game. And you see me, basically we went out to Eastern Washington, shot a bunch of footage of us acting kind of like Soundgarden at the time, hanging out with the band, playing some music and stuff. And so this is part of my gaming history, which I'm pretty proud of, and a lot of people still love this game to this day. I find it incredibly hard to play, to be honest with you, just because I get stuck all the time. Another game that I loved at the time was the original Mech Warrior. This is the original by Activision, and At that time, I really became a PC gamer, working at Sierra, supporting games, really understanding how games work on a PC, moving from DOS to Windows, creating boot disks, because at the time memory was so rare that you would fight over the conventional memory and what games had to use at the time. There was also high memory and things like that, and so it was all about sort of resource management. I just want to highlight some of the games that I sort of loved at the time. Ultima 4, Quest for the Avatar, one of the all-time great classic RPGs. This is the Atari 400 version, which actually I own this simply because a friend of mine gave it to me, but it's pretty cool. It has maps and it has actually the little Ankh in here. A game I absolutely used to love back in the day on the PC was an original, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Curse of the Azure Bonds. Also, Pool of Radiance was another great title at the time. While working at Sierra, they started working with Blizzard, and Diablo and Diablo 2 came out, and I ended up getting this sort of the ultimate Diablo 2 experience box set, which has a DVD and books in here. It has a D&D rule set. I mean, it's pretty cool, pretty crazy. Then also, just some games from the times I used to support at Sierra. This is Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within, another, actually a lot of people consider this to be one of the best uses of full motion video at the time. Simply because it seems to fit in there and it's not awkward, and you don't, it's still, I have to be honest with you, the reason why I'm kind of struggling with it is because it's still kind of that sort of gameplay where you click, you watch a guy walk, you click on a bowl, he bends over and grabs the bowl. It is what it is. At the time, this was the biggie. This is the Phantasmagoria. Was one of the big sort of crossover games that Sierra and a bunch of people were just waiting for. It's funny to me when people complain about, games come on, ooh, the Xbox 360 version of Mass Effect 2 came on two DVDs, oh my god. Yeah, back in the day, Phantasmagoria, 7. And you'd have to pop these out, and it was pretty funny at the time. But it's because all the full motion video just couldn't hold in the format of the day. And then basically at that point, I got, at the end of the 90s, I got really sick of gaming on a Windows computer, simply because at the time you'd struggle with drivers, video drivers and sound drivers, and Windows itself wasn't exactly sort of stable, and resource management on computers at the time was brutal. You'd have to close everything that was running at the time just to simply get a decent frame rate. And so I remember kind of falling out of love of PC gaming at the time, and a friend of mine from Sierra had bought a PlayStation 2. I had sort of skipped over the PlayStation 1 generation. I'm still gaming on the PC at the time. Anyways, he had a PlayStation 2. I went over to his house, and I was like, I'll check it out, And he had a game called SSX, which was a snowboarding game, which I hope to cover in the future because it blew me away. It was awesome. It was easy to play. There was depth to it. The graphics were great. And I really slowly started moving into console gaming again at that time, simply because the hardware was really able to catch up and do 3D very well. So it was very comparable with the PC at the time, and frankly there was just no setup. You plug these things in, you plug in a controller, and you just go. Because that's what it's about. I don't want to have to configure stuff. It's cheap. I don't want to have to spend $2,000 in a gaming rig, that sort of stuff. And I've been sort of a console gamer ever since. Now I also understand that PC gaming has come a long ways, and Windows is certainly way better than it was back then. But my preference is that consoles are easy, and that's what I want. I want to play games. I don't want to mess with stuff. So anyways, it's a little bit of my history. It's ironic that now I'm starting to go back, and if you watch my Man Cave tour, you'll find out that I've got a bunch of consoles now that I didn't own at the time, and so it's kind of exciting that I didn't own the Dreamcast at the time. I didn't own the GameCube or the N64 or all that stuff, and so that's all brand new to me, and I have a new appreciation for it. And it's funny, I used to make fun of Nintendo and being kiddie games, and now actually I like a lot of the stuff that they do. I appreciate it for what it is, and their pure gameplay aspect of it. So, anyways, this is the Metal Jesus. I hope you enjoyed a little history of my gaming, and thanks for watching.